I'm your host, Victoria.
And I'm your host, Sophia.
I'm Lucas Rocklin.
And welcome to the Law School Diaries. We are so excited to have Lucas here today. We were just talking briefly before the episode started. I feel like we don't have guests very often on the podcast. And a lot of the times when someone is interested in being a guest on our podcast, we naturally get a little bit nervous because Vic and I have very strong personalities and we get a little worried about how the personalities will mesh. But given the brief conversation we had before, I am so excited for this episode. You guys are going to love it.
Welcome to the Law School Diaries, Lucas.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. And I should probably tell you I've watched a number of your episodes in advance, and I'm a fan. An absolute fan. I'm excited to be here.
Well, that makes us very excited and grateful. We were a little nervous, obviously, just because we're not the traditional law students, but that's the whole purpose of this podcast. And so I feel like you sort of took to that. And maybe you could just start by introducing yourself and tell everybody how you became an attorney.
Sure. My name's Lucas Rocklin. I'm from Connecticut, and I went to undergraduate at Syracuse and law school at Brooklyn Law School. And I came back to Connecticut because my family's here, and I wanted to be close to my family, so that was important. And worry about how I went to law school is somewhat interesting. I was at undergrad at Syracuse, and my major was philosophy, which is not a major that really puts you well positioned in the career world, short of being a philosophy professor. Albeit I thought it was an incredibly helpful major in terms of learning how to critically think and read and write. Those are all transferable skills, lifelong skills, and obviously they bode very well in law school. At the same time, my minor was music industry. Okay, I really have a love and passion for music. And when I was taking a music class, a required music class, it was called music law. And I was like, oh, I can pair maybe my love for music with maybe a stability of a legal profession. And so I said, I'm going to go to law school. So it was a decision made at age, you make these decisions when you're young. And so at that time I was, 19, 20. I'm going to go to law school and leverage my philosophy with music, and I want to be a music lawyer. And so Brooklyn Law School is a good place to do that because music law is predominant in the New York City area. It's like LA or New York City. So that's essentially the story, and all of us have some version of the story I just told you of why did I go to law school? It's like this one little moment, or it's like a collection of little things in retrospect that send you down a path that dictates so much of the rest of your life.
Yeah, I feel like that happened to you.
I think so too. Vic is the classic, I was a little girl and I wanted to be a lawyer and I'm going to be a lawyer type of thing. Mine was so not like that. But I think something that you said is very important. We do have some people who are thinking about law school who watch our podcast. And I think something that Lucas points out is there's no right way to dictate your life before you make the decision that you want to go to law school. Yeah. Even here, speaking to some students during 1L, there's people who are musical theater majors. There's so many, political science is not the right answer to study when you're an undergrad. Will it help you sometimes? I feel like a lot of things, anything you can study, there's a lot of transferable skills when 100%. You come to law school. And so I think that's so important that you mentioned that, because I always have people who will message me on social media and say I'm going to college, what should I study? I want to go to law school too. And I'm do something that actually sparks your passion, something that sparks your interest, because you may think you want to go to law school now and then you study something, or you're in a class and something may create a light bulb that's not law school, or maybe it will just allow you to really dive deep into your academic self, and then you'll continue your path to getting to law school.
Find what resonates to you. When I went off to college, I remember having a conversation with my father. He was a physician, and he knew, much like you, Victoria, that he wanted to be a physician when he was a youngster, when he was a kid. Yeah. And I remember talking to him. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and he said, look, you're going to go to Syracuse, you're in arts and sciences, you have all these core requirements. Why don't you just take those core requirements and see what resonates with you, see what moves you? And so when I took those classes, the thing that I liked most was philosophy. The philosophy classes, these where you're sitting in a room and you're having deep conversations about deep life issues. And so I like to say that like something like philosophy picked me, almost. And I think that's like not everyone does that. Some people go, I want to go to school in finance, and they go into the business school, and it's like all finance. And like there's not one way to do any of these things.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Law school picked me. But I will say, even with communications, I feel there's sort of like a stereotype around it of like, what are you going to do with that? But then when I came here, I was like, communications is honestly probably one of the most important majors that you could do before coming here. Just talking to classmates, professors, and even I was in interview and client counseling this semester. And so basically you have like a fact pattern the whole semester, and you have one client and you go through it, but it's like another student, not a real client. And I just wrote the final paper today, and I wanted to write about like social penetration theory and all these communication styles of like how to really connect with your client. And I'm like, this is the wrong class. I am in law school now, not communications, but it all sort of connects and goes together.
So I know we're going to talk about like AI and the impact AI will have on the legal profession. And like, just by way of a preview, I think communication is not something that AI is going to be AI immune. I mean, so like, hold on to the communication. That is going to serve you tremendously for the rest of your life. So.
I just want to take this opportunity to get into like one of the questions that I really wanted to ask you, and it was perfect timing because you mentioned that your kind of idea of going to law school is for music, and you do something that's totally not. And I'm not sure, maybe you do still some music on the side, but from my understanding, you do not. And how you do the practice area you were in is something that not a lot of law students will come in and say, you know, I want to do bankruptcy, or it's just not a common practice area that's ever really talked about. So how did you fall into that?
Right, it's a great question. So when so my practice, I'm an attorney in New Haven, Connecticut, the law firm Newbert Pepe Monteith. I'm a principal at the firm. I've been at the firm since 2006. I graduated law school in 2003. I was with another firm prior to the firm I'm at. And so my specialty is commercial litigation with a heavy emphasis on creditor rights matters. And I also do labor law, I practice labor law. When you do creditor rights commercial litigation, it spans into other areas as well, including bankruptcy, including landlord-tenant. It has tentacles that reach beyond into multiple different areas. So, but to answer your question, how did I fall into those areas? When I was at law school, I took labor law. Again, I started up by telling you I wanted to go be music law. I had an internship at RCA Records, and I decided that time, it was very cool. I decided at that time this isn't the right thing, right? You think one thing, and then you experience some of it, and then you realize, oh, this isn't what I thought it is, or isn't what I want to do. And so I'm in law school, I take labor law, and the professor was a practicing attorney at the National Labor Relations Board. And I did very well in law school, and I developed a nice relationship with this professor, and I then started interning at the National Labor Relations Board. So I graduated law school thinking, I want to practice labor law. That's what I want to make my career in. And so I ended up at a firm that is very highly regarded that does labor law. They represent local municipalities and helping them navigate their union issues, collective bargaining agreement, things of such. That's how I got into labor law. I switched firms to the firm I'm at now, Newbert Pepe Monteith, and I still do labor law, but one of the things that happened is the partners or people that were feeding me work and having me help on their matters, I was often the go-to person for creditor rights matters. We have this client, they're a bank or they're a private lender or such, and the loan has gone into default or they need help navigating these issues. There was this white space. And so I found the white space, I saw the opportunity, and I occupied that spot, which is really, really important for each of you and the listeners, which is life is so much a game of relativity. You are measured against your peers. When you go to a law firm or wherever you end up work, you will be judged by virtue of where you are relative to your peers. If you can find an area that isn't occupied where you're going to go, you may own that area. You will be the person in the firm that owns that area. You'll be the go-to person. You'll be indispensable. versus if you are just one of 10 people at the firm that do that thing. And then you're gonna have to be, very competitive with those folks. So the opportunity was presented, do you want to do commercial litigation, creditor rights work? And I said, of course, sure. And so that's how I developed those two specialties. And as I said, the rest is history. In terms of specialties, the other thing I would mention I think is important is specializing in an area is something I would recommend. If you want to be the person, if you want to say, if you have this legal issue, this is easy. You call Victoria and Sophia. They're the best. If you have this legal issue, you call them because they're
You hear that?
best. In order to occupy that space, in order to become top 10% or even top 5%, you have to go into a specialty, in my view. And then you have to lower your head and you have to work like 2 decades.
Yeah.
And then you can emerge. Like I know your mother had an unfortunate accident and had to have surgery. I'm sure you guys went, she
To a
went to the specialist, and probably the
Yeah.
best one.
Yeah.
And who is that person? This is the guy that, if you have knee surgery,
Yeah.
hopefully I haven't disclosed too much.
No,
If
you
have-
can say whatever. She'll be here today. You can meet her after.
Okay. If you need knee surgery, shoulder surgery, whatever the issue is, you go to this doctor or that doctor, right?
Yeah.
How did that person get to be that person?
That reputation.
I love this.
They specialized. They're not the general practitioner. And I'm not demeaning
Of
any of
course.
these things, but they specialized, and then they worked on their craft for decades.
That's so good.
Yeah. I love that.
I took anti-money laundering this semester. And I never thought of a career in that area. The financial literature to me was really hard at first because I know nothing. I just know nothing about that world. And slowly but surely, I started to pick up on things. I would really dive deep into the reading and really try to understand the root of the issues. And that was when I realized you know what? I had crafted this idea in my mind that I was going to take only classes. I came in, I love real estate. I still do. Love real property. Property is just my, bread and butter. I will talk for hours about it. And so my idea was, take real estate classes, take whatever I can to do that. And then when I took anti-money laundering, I realized, maybe I should be taking this opportunity to just take whatever seems even just a speck of interesting to me, because you don't know where your passion can just take off.
Yeah.
And so I think that's my leap of faith this summer really is I was in an in-house capacity last summer. I loved it. That was the type of work I always envisioned myself doing. And next summer, I'm going totally 360. I'm going to be in very heavy litigation, toxic tort, obsesses, so much stuff that I would have never imagined myself in. And I'm very excited. I have no idea if I'm going to like it. I have no idea if I'm going to find it interesting. But one thing for sure is exactly where I was going. That's the beauty in it. And if you told me that, I would be that Sophia's crazy. This Sophia would never do that. But I'm very excited to take that on because that's the only way you really know is getting your hands dirty in it.
Yeah.
Correct. You will find out not just what you like, but you will also find out what you don't like.
Yeah.
And further, we say this at our firm, and certainly some of my partners more in particular. If you get hired into a firm to do, you respond to a resume seeking a real estate attorney in some capacity, and let's say you get hired there. The firm may still want you to be exposed to lots of different areas because ultimately that knowledge in the other areas will help you in the capacity, even if you ultimately end up doing real estate.
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for instance, here's a good example of real estate, because I do quite a bit in real estate on the litigation side, but there are attorneys in my office that do it on the transactional side. So a lender wants to close a loan, they need attorney's assistance to do that. A transactionally based real estate attorney will assist them, prepare the documentation. Okay? If there's a default, if there's a problem with the loan thereafter, it may land on my lap. Okay, that's the litigation side. But if the front-end real estate transactional attorney has done some litigation work, it will help them tremendously in terms of documenting the paper correctly, having the terms and the conditions, because they have known from real-world experience what can happen with the right language, or what can go wrong if you don't have the right language, or you miss critical language. But you would never know that if you hadn't been exposed to those other areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on something you mentioned before when you were telling us your whole story on how you ended up in the practice area. You touched on how you got very close to a professor in your labor law class.
Yes.
That just gives us an easy segue into mentorship. Victoria and I are like the biggest proponents for like talk to every single person you ever meet and like get to know them.
It's brilliant.
I want to
Definitely
know
do that.
your take on how important, I mean, in your capacity, like taking on mentees, and also like if you still have mentors in your career, and how you kind of navigate that.
Listen, I love this question, and we talked about this a little bit in our prep session. And I told you in the prep session, and I feel like I should just say this now, that I had written down like maybe 6 to 8 things that I think we should try to get out that are of critical importance in terms of how to have a good life, how to be successful in life, that certainly apply to the practice of law, but just would apply to any endeavor one would do. And mentorship and having role models is on that list, okay? It's one of the items on the list. Find someone who is doing what you want to do, but is 20 years in front. You will get to that finish line. You will trim years off. You will avoid pitfalls. You will avoid mistakes. You will have someone educate you and assist you in a way that you will not be able to find from just books. And so have I had mentors? Absolutely. Some of them are attorneys in my firm. Some of them are family and friends. Some of them are my favorite podcast hosts or authors of books. So mentors can be living and non-living. They can be attorneys. They can be luminaries. But they're of critical importance in not just the practice of law, but big life issues, like real big life issues, like some of the ones we're going to talk about now that are how to do billing. I've had a mentor tell me, this is how you do billing. You put yourself in the shoes of the client, and the client receives the bill. Does the client understand what the bill says? Does the fee seem reasonable relative to the work? And it's brilliant. And that's how I do my billing. It's because someone told me that's how you do your billing.
It is brilliant.
And you never forget what people tell you. Like, you never forget it when it clicks and it stays with you, then you use it for
When
the
it
rest of your
resonates,
life.
yeah.
And then you pass it down to other
And
generations.
You pass it down to others. And when you said mentorship, we have a mentorship at our firm. We have attorneys present on a monthly basis in a large conference room, and you get to hear from other attorneys in the firm and hear what they do, and you have a collaborative discussion and you bond. And we have more of a formal mentor-mentee relationship where younger attorneys get paired with more senior attorneys, and the younger attorneys get to select who they want to be their mentor, and then they meet and they talk about, hey, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? Let's talk about how to do it. Let's sit down and sketch out a plan. Let's sketch out the 1, the 3-year, 5-year plan, and let's go to work and let's meet every couple of weeks. So having a mentorship and just shaking hands and meeting as many people as you can is such a good return on your investment. It's just like planting seeds. You're planting seeds all over the place. You don't know which ones are going to germinate. You don't know when you strike a relationship with someone that you'll meet them 5 years later.
Absolutely.
You just don't know. You say thank you, you say please, you be a good person, you do good, you'll feel good. Like, this is the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said, that you can't find it from just a book. Like, you have to have that human interaction, which ties us back to communication again. And we can move into an AI discussion if you wanted to.
Sure. All right. So, just throwing out, like, I think my views are AI is incredibly powerful technology, and there's lots of discussion in the headlines about what is AI going to do. Are people going to lose jobs? What jobs is it going to consume? Will it be white-collar, entry-level jobs? Will it be young attorney jobs? What things could AI not replace?
Yeah.
And how do you think about that, and how to comport yourself, and what do you think about, and what skills do you want to learn to try to position yourself well with AI? So some of the things I think about is and I would recommend to you, and it's recommendations I give to myself and the people I work with, is to get incredibly well versed in AI. Do not ignore the technology. Use and leverage the technology. It makes you more efficient. Legal research can be done. You shouldn't have any grammatical or typographical mistakes anymore.
Right.
Like all that stuff
Right.
is solved by AI. Leverage it and use it.
I needed to hear that because I'm
Vic is so anti.
I'm anti-AI. I'm scared of it because I feel like you can always get in trouble. Like if you use it for something to write, like I never want to be in trouble for anything, and I'm so afraid of it, and I don't want it to help me really. But it is nice to like pop over for like a question here and there.
Right.
So I really needed to hear that.
I would
take advantage of it.
I would try to use it as much as you can, as responsibly as you can. We've all heard of the hallucination.
Absolutely.
And it's a very real thing when you use general AI like ChatGPT or the comparable products like Gemini or Perplexity or Claude's Anthropic. All of those don't do well at finding case law.
They do not.
They actually, and because they're so biased to give you an answer, they give you a false sense of confidence that there's this case that exists or it stands for that proposition, and then you go to Lexis or Westlaw or like the real search engine, and like either the case doesn't exist at all, or the case does exist but it doesn't stand for that proposition.
Right.
It's so all over the place. I feel like it kind of confuses me more of like, am I right? And then I research something. I'm like, well, did I research it the right way then? Because this isn't telling me the same thing.
So when I was at Vic and I are so very different on this AI take.
Yeah.
I know a lot of these like topics sometimes come back to my time at Travelers, but that was like the biggest bulk of my legal experience so far. So that's really why. But they have practice groups. They're like business practice groups. And my mentor during the summer actually was part of the AI group. And so I got a lot of really cool assignments to like research things going on with AI. And so you talk about like hallucination and false propositions in cases, which happen so often. And in my head, there's an easy solution, right? If you're doing your due diligence as an attorney, as whatever, and you're searching up those cases in Lexis and Westlaw after, and they don't exist or they're not, or you're reading through the opinion, you're like, wait, this doesn't stand for this at all. Right. Then it's taken care of easily. But I will say, I had to put a presentation together this summer around AI. And I found an article that was really well written. And the major theme and idea that was taken away from the article was that, especially in the legal profession for like entry level, like first year associate situations, AI is not necessarily coming after our jobs. It will be a tool that the generation of attorneys above us are going to expect us to be very proficient in. And that was where I was like, wait a minute, like I have to stop being afraid, but I have to know how to use it proficiently, because someone is not going to come into the firm and take my X amount of billable hours that can be done in half the time had I known how to use AI proficiently. Yeah. And that's really where I think it's important. Like if you know how to use it and you know how to use it well, you will be just fine.
What you just said, I have written down because it is, I'm in 100% agreement. I think there's two quick things to throw out. Number one, there's probably certain legal areas that are AI could potentially usurp more than others. Mm-hmm. Okay, you just hit the nail on the head. If I'm at a law firm and we need to hire a younger attorney, if they come in and say, look, I did great in law school, and you're hiring for this position, and that's my thing, and I can help solve this problem, and I'm a pleasure to work with, I'll be teamwork, and by the way, I'm a savant in AI. I know how to use this and leverage this technology, and I'd be happy to help be a teacher and help onboard this stuff if you need assistance. You have now put another feather in your cap. You've now made yourself more valuable. The spectrum of attorneys runs from 20-year-olds to 70-year-olds, maybe 80-year-olds. And the older population, in my experience, hasn't adopted and doesn't use that technology.
No.
They don't even use Lexis. Like they're still opening books, and I'm like,
right.
I know.
So the AI, despite the fact that it's hallucination, that shouldn't scare any of us. It shouldn't scare the viewers. It should make you aware that you have to double check and check the citations for sure. But you shouldn't say, oh, well, therefore I'm not going to use it. I think you should use it. It makes you much, much, much more efficient. You don't use the AI. You have to assume your competitors are.
Yep.
even if you don't want to do it, you almost have to. It's almost not optional. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Efficiencies come online, and what we don't do is say, we're way more efficient than we used to be, we're going to take off Fridays.
Yep.
What we used to do Monday through Friday, we now can do Monday through Thursday, so like the firm's shutting down on Friday. Unfortunately,
That's not
what
happening.
happens. What happens is you just do more.
Right.
You just do more. And so you will be able to touch more clients and more files and grow the practice with less people by leveraging the technology.
Right. I will put in one more small blip, and this is not backed by any facts or anything, but just in my experience, I think that it's also something I took away from my externship this semester. There's beauty sometimes in speaking to people who are non-attorneys, because sometimes you cannot take off that lawyer hat. And I'm speaking from like a law student position. Don't know if you can agree with that, but sometimes it's very hard for me to I feel like after the first semester of law school, everything I saw, everything I heard, I was just thinking like, legally that sucks, like legally that's great, like whatever. And I know like this year or this semester when I was working in another in-house counsel capacity, there were people who were doing the same job, some lawyers and some non-lawyers. And the one thing my boss said to me very early on was, it's very nice to have two different sides, because sometimes this person brings a perspective that one of the lawyers who are doing the same job doesn't think of, because we jump to the legal conclusion right away. And so I will say sometimes I think AI is very, very good with that, because if I'm using it to either help me like dumb something down or like really try to absorb something that it's telling me, it'll say something in a way that, of course, I fact check to make sure that it's actually saying that, but in a way where I'm like, I was just not reading it like that. I was not reading it at that third grade level that would open my eyes to something maybe that AI didn't say for me, but open my eyes beyond what I could have done because I was just looking at it from a legal sense. Yeah. Like, does that make sense?
That makes sense. I did that on my outlines a lot for 1L. So if it was like, what is this? I would have an AI sort of dumb it down for me.
Sure.
Like, tell it to me like I'm 5 years old.
Right.
And so I would have that little definition underneath it so that when I studied, if I forgot something or like it wasn't clicking, I'd be like, okay, but this is how it is broken down and so simple. And so that's how it kind of helped me remember everything.
Right. I had a trial recently at the end of last month, and I was preparing questions for the trial of my witness, cross-examination, and one of the axioms is you want to have simple, non-compound questions. Mm-hmm. And the AI was perfect for that. Here's the testimony I want to elicit. Take this and turn it into simple, non-compound, direct questions. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
So I shaved off time, and it was helpful.
Yeah.
I want to come back to something you said, Victoria. You have an expertise in communications. This is not something that I think it's largely immune to AI. AI will help be more efficient, but someone still has to sell the services. Mm-hmm. I'm Victoria. You should hire me because I'm an expert in this area, and I have this team of people, and here's what we do, and we're incredibly efficient. By the way, we use AI. We're going to use AI on your legal work, and we're going to do so responsibly. But someone has to be the front. Someone has to communicate. Someone has to sell and pick up the phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that skill is an incredibly important skill that you should lean into. I also said that maybe there's some things that are maybe more immune to AI. Litigation may be one of them. You still have to show up to court, and you still have to be an advocate, and you still have to put on the trials, and you're still a human judge.
Yeah, so I was on the debate team at Miami, and there was a motion, House favors like getting rid of judges in criminal trials and allowing AI to make the decision because you either did it or you didn't if you meet the elements.
Right.
And, well, I'm not saying that. That was just like the fact pattern.
Right.
And I was like, that scared me so much. I'm like, why would that AI ever replace a judge? Sometimes you get stuck in that lawyer brain and you can't take your cap off. I think that is so important. But I also think that's the type of people that go to law school, right? So that's the reason we have that podcast, because for me, my lawyer hat right now, obviously I'm only a 2L, is always second. So even going back to my ICC paper I wrote this morning, it's just fresh in my mind, is like you have to know who your client is. And I had to watch this video about the brain and empathy and the neuroscience of empathy. And it's like you have to know that your client is going to kind of copy what you're doing. So it was like, emotions are contagious and behavior is contagious. And so the way you act is how someone else acts. And so you don't want to come in just as I'm only a lawyer to your client, because then they're nervous, they're scared, they're confused, they're unsure, they're hesitant to kind of express everything they want to do. And so AI doesn't really have that personality, I guess. Yeah. And so it's so important to be kind, take into consideration the person your client is when you're discussing with them, and even your opponent. I feel like it's so important to just know the best communication style and all of that. And I just feel like AI doesn't have that. But if all those different kinds of people are going to use AI, then you have to use it in a way that's best for you, and then kind of compare it to the way other people use it.
It's so true. When you're meeting with different clients, and you're meeting with different individuals, you have to communicate on their level. You have to be multi-talented in so many different things. Communication is one of them, and to be able to sit in a room with young people and old people and highly educated people and judges and all walks of life, and to be able to communicate with them in a manner where you can get your ideas across and you can sound relatable and tell a meaningful, impactful story, that's the thing that I think AI lacks. And so you should absolutely think about that and lean into it and become a savant at AI, because you're going to need to be, and it's going to help you.
I'm going to also just I love picking on things that you mentioned just to draw to my next idea. But we were just making jokes, I guess, about how even though AI will help us be more proficient, in a way that is not letting us work less, it's just letting more work into the door. I would like to take this opportunity to go into work-life balance and kind of that world of the discussion. I'll start off by saying I know that coming into law school, everyone kind of has a different idea of what that looks like for them. Some people are okay with coming here and putting their head down for 5-10 years after law school and kind of just going on with doing all the work. Some people come in and say some people don't even want to be lawyers at all. They just want the education. And other people are very adamant, especially I feel like today's day and age, because a lot of people don't want to work. A lot of people are lazy, but they have this idea of I can be a lawyer and I can really honor that work-life balance. And I feel like sometimes the more we go on in this education, I realize that there's going to be a lapse in that no matter what in the beginning of your career. But I want to take from your experiences, so I'd like to hear how you have found that balance. We know you're a father, you're a husband, how you have done those things.
Right. So this balance issue is another one of these, what I would consider these macro issues that I wanted to discuss today. Mm-hmm. And here's my experience and my view about what I would say successful people in general, what I've seen and what I've experienced. And I'll start by saying it's okay to be out of balance at different periods in your life. Your priorities are going to change over time. And what you want now will be different, and it should be, from in 15 or 20 or 30 years. It's going to shift. However, you want to be, like we talked about, top 10% in your area or top 5% in your specialty. That will likely require you to be out of, quote unquote, out of balance. 2 decades of lowering your head and working hard and building your craft day by day, brick by brick, showing up and doing the work, investing in yourself. And that will get you very good at the thing you're focusing on. Let's use an extreme example. Michael Phelps, the swimmer Michael Phelps. My understanding is that Michael Phelps swam 7 days a week without break for years on end. What that means is he said yes to one thing and said no to everything else. And the outcome of that, plus his tremendous talent, was that he was the world's best swimmer. Yep. Okay.
I love that.
And if you look at people that have risen to the top of their fields, I think the commonality is the same. You intently focus on the thing, you work on the craft, you say yes to that thing, and you say no to most other things. a balanced life, and don't take this wrong. I don't want anyone to
Yeah,
take this
it can
wrong.
go either way. It just depends the person
It depends
you are.
on what you want to do. Everybody gets to make that decision. Some people don't want that. Some people want to work 9 to 5, and then I want to do my thing after 5 o'clock, and I want to live for the weekends, and that I'm not demeaning that. I don't.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's everybody gets to make that choice. Just know that other people are going to opt to do the other thing. I don't know that there's ever any coasting. I just don't think. You're either trying to improve or you're receding. I just don't think there's any such thing as treading water.
I think that's so important.
I feel it's so unique also, just listening to how you described both. I feel like for Sophia and I, before we came to law school, it was so normal to get a job 9 to 5, and like that's kind of what we were like, that's what everyone else is doing. And we took this big leap of faith, and then we were like, are we supposed to be here? Like, why are we the only ones who really want to like devote everything we have to this? And sometimes like it gets lost, our personalities get lost a little bit because we're so law school focused right now. But I just think it's so important of like, that's where we are right now. And that's what we have to do to get there. And so I feel like we kind of changed ourselves, and now being in law school, everyone is like that. And so it's a very different dynamic than college, because college, everybody has a different outlook
Right.
on what they're going to do. And then when you come here, it's like, everyone has that, like, I'm going 100%. And then it makes you want to go 100% because you're surrounded
The
by it.
funnel gets narrowed. You're in college with all sorts of people, all sorts of walks of life, and then you come to law school, and all of a sudden you're looking around, and you're like, everyone here is pretty serious.
Yeah,
You know, and we're all
100%.
jockeying for the A, and then we're all looking for the same law firm jobs, you
Yeah.
know?
I remember it just made me think very early on, I would call my hometown best friends very often and just be like, like, I hate it. I should have taken a 9 to 5. Like the silly things you always tell yourself when you're doing something that you always dreamed of, which I don't feel that way anymore. I'm so grateful for where I am. But my best friend said to me one day, she's like, so you were a college soccer player. You were taking 18 credits. I graduated a year early. She was like, you were taking 18 credits every single semester. You were doing winter, summer classes. You worked like 3 jobs. She's like, why are you so afraid of a career that was literally made for you? And I was like, wow. I was like, wow, you're so right.
You were gonna be better
But
than
it's
good
so
in this.
funny when you think about it, because in my head, I'm like, I mean, even now I work 3 jobs essentially, if you count the podcast, 4, and then school. And for some reason, I have this like really deep like fear of like what my life is going to look like when I'm an attorney. And I can't fathom the fact that I've been doing this like crazy life my entire, like since I was a little girl. I've always had so many jobs. Like I've always been go. And so I think it's so important to hear that, because I think sometimes like that time commitment conversation that everyone floats around, and like I said before, everyone is constantly talking about this idea of work-life balance, like they are going to end up working a normal 9 to 5, and I know it's not true. And this is like, right, this is the life we want. That's why we're here. And it's just so interesting to hear that, because even a lot of firms now have like on their page in big bold letters, work-life balance, and I'm like, why are you promoting this life that is just not true for attorneys, especially in the beginning? And like, is it something
Especially
that you're
in law school.
Right. Is it a goal? Absolutely. You want to have that ability to differentiate your life. And I'm not saying that I'm ready to work 90 hours a week. Like that's obviously not the goal either. But of course, like you have to take, like you need to swallow the pill of like, this is not easy. And we are in a career where people will seek our help. People will need our help. And God willing, we'll be able to provide our help.
Right. There is an offshoot of this on another subject that we had discussed, which is culture, because Sophia, you mentioned culture. Different firms have different cultures, and I would implore you and your listeners to find a place that has a culture that fits well with them.
And I think we also talked about some hobbies, just how important small hobbies are. So what would be your favorite hobby that helps you smile throughout a tough week?
So, like, I can tell you my favorite hobbies, but just on a general level, because it is another one of these macro issues, is I think it's super important to have hobbies that balance out this profession of law. And that can be, for me, I like taking long walks. I have 2 dogs, and I find them very therapeutic to be outside. We're inside so much during the day. I really, really like being outside. I like the air. I like the feeling. And so I take my dogs on long walks. I like reading books. I like watching old movies. I like woodworking. So those are the hobbies that I enjoy. Music.
Like your escape. Oh, yeah, music.
Yeah. But why do I think hobbies are important is because it's something different. You do this different thing. Like I'm a huge believer in routine. And one of the things you add on the routine, in my view, is what is the hobby, the 1 or 2 hobbies that you're gonna add to the routine that you do on a daily basis, even if it's only half hour. Okay, if it's running, the win is that you went for a run. It's not that you entered the race and did well. It's not.
I love that.
I like that too.
I'm a huge believer. Winston Churchill famously laid bricks and was a painter, so he's presiding over World War II. You can say, well, he shouldn't have found time to do those things. He should have been entirely focused on. But no, I'm sure that when he was painting and laying those bricks, he was thinking strategy. And it was only through that methodical, meditative thing that probably he may have came up with his best ideas.
Yeah.
I know that JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis was like doing a lot of doodling, which if you've never tried doodling, it's actually
I love to doodle.
So doodling like has like data to support that this like calms your mind and focuses your mind. And
you retain stuff now.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Because-
for sure.
Wait, wasn't someone like viral for like every time they would study, they would draw circles
You
on their
draw
notebook?
with your non-dominant hand on
Yeah.
the notebook while you read.
And
I
it,
have
like-
read that if
did a
you're
TikTok.
listening to an audiobook or a podcast while doodling, it puts your mind in a certain state that allows you to absorb the material. And I've experimented with it, and I found it to be true. So I know JFK doodled when he was in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is like the most stressful, intenseful thing.
And I couldn't help but see that Lucas writes a ton.
Right.
And we went into this conversation about like how you use it sometimes to leverage and establish yourself, your practice. And I want you to talk about it a little bit because I think it's very interesting.
The work just doesn't fall in your lap. You have to go out. And this is where it gets exciting. You've done all this work. You've gone through law school. You've been an associate. You put in all these long hours. You've had all these successes and failures. And at the end of it, you are this hardened attorney. And now you want to tell the world, here's who I am. Let me tell you who I am. Let me tell you my specialty. And here's why you should hire me. So for me, I have one of the things I've leaned into bring in business is to write articles. And what I do is I reverse engineer what I think my prospective clients want to know. I need help with this legal issue, or what is this thing, or what is that thing. I'm constantly thinking, what are my clients, what are the issues they have? I try to put those on a piece of paper, and then I write the article that will educate them on that specific subject, with the idea that when someone Googles that topic, then my article will show up right away.
I guess we'll just go into stress.
Right.
Sometimes I recognize like how stressed out I am at school, and at the end of the day, and I know we were talking about this before slightly, but sometimes I get so like guilty with myself if like I take like an extra 10 minutes in the shower because the water was warm and it felt good, and I'm like, oh, 10 minutes, I could have had 10 flashcards done, like why would I do that? And it's like this constant battle. And obviously I expect it to get worse as I progress in my career, but let's talk about stress.
Let's talk about stress, and then we should parlay that into health. Because these things are closely related. The thing I'll say about stress kind of mirrors my comments about balance, which is it the hard truth? Is that the right terminology for this? Which is that stress is a couple things. It's unavoidable. I think you and listeners need to understand that stress is an unavoidable byproduct of having a big, important job. It's unavoidable. Successful people, in my experience, are constantly stressed. But that's why they're successful, because they're constantly worried about solving the problem. They're constantly worried about the competition. They're constantly worried about staying competitive.
So interesting. So one of the things I always say about Victoria and I's friendship is that and God, like this is so gracious of the way it goes, but I feel like truly like the days that I'm really like doubtful and like so stressed out that I like don't want to do it anymore.
I'm
like
the silliest that
yeah,
day.
she's like having the silliest day in the world.
Right.
And then but it's so perfectly vice versa. Like there'll be a day where she's like, this sucks, and I'm like, oh my God, no. Like I'm like, this is great. And so I do think that there's two sides of the coin. Like one day I'll wake up and like we're human. We all have the days where you wake up and you're just like, I like do not want to do this today. And those are the days where I'm like so stressed out and it's like a negative stress. But then there's some days where I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm leaving the house at 6:30 in the morning. I won't get home until 10 o'clock tonight. And I'm like, but thank God. And so
I get to do that.
thank God I can. And so sometimes I'm like, Sophia, look at you. Like you are like really like you're doing it today. And then other days I just can't even like
We all have two voices in our head. You've got the voice that wants one thing, and then you've got the other voice that's scared. I mean, we all look. What's most personal is most universal. The feelings and ideas that are in your head are the same ones in my head. They're the same ones in whoever else is in this building, and for millennia, and will always be that way.
But my dad always spits quotes to me. So like randomly, now my whole desk, I have all post-it notes of like quotes that I love that my dad tells me. So my favorite one to date is, I fight better when I'm scared, from Rocky.
Right.
So when I was so scared for the final, I'm like, I have everything I need, and like I'm just so scared that I'm not going to know it the best, or I'm not going to write it how I know it. And he was like, you fight better when you're scared. Just go in there and do it. You're scared, acknowledge that you're scared, and go and do it. So I love to have little quotes everywhere. And we talked about how my parents played tennis. I think you play tennis or pickleball?
I play tennis.
Yeah, so my dad is a national champion now,
No way.
50 and over. And I have his picture of when they won. And he dropped to his knee and the racket's in the air. And he's like, I did it finally, because his whole life he wanted to do that. So now I have that picture on my desk with a Post-it on it that says, I fight better when I'm scared. And so that's how I get through my stress, when I know I'm like, is it all worth it? Or I'm scared, or Sophia's not in a silly mood today to bring me up. Like I look at that and I'm just like, that's how I'm going to get through it today.
You can play games. You can flip the stress on its head, where let's say you're going to an exam, your heart's beating, and you're stressed. You can be like a third person observing yourself, step outside of yourself. Sometimes I do this when I go into court. Like health, you can ignore health, but health is not going to ignore you. I mean, there's a phrase, if you don't make time for fitness, well, you're going to have to make time for sickness.
Let's talk about investing in yourself and like what that means.
The investment in yourself is something that I feel hugely important. How can I be better tomorrow than I am today? And just be intentional. Don't let someone hijack your time. Do audit of yourself. Do I have the priority list right? Do I have the routine right?
I think that intent piece is like so important. I think that I always like am conscious of like how intentional I'm being with my time, because something you can do in 3 hours can be like done in one if like you just like sit down and like you're intentional with like what you have to do and like how you're doing it.
But is there any one piece of advice that you would give our listeners or viewers to take with them on their journey, whether they're a law student, an attorney, or just anybody interested in general?
Yes, here's my one piece of advice, which is mood follows action. If you do good, you will feel good. Do esteemable acts and you will be esteemed, okay? Give more than you take. Yeah.
This one time last year, I just like,
She made fun
everything
of me.
you're saying. I did not make fun of you. I was crying
loved
tears.
it.
I loved it. We were just sitting in the cafeteria and there was a boy who like Victoria knows. I did not know who he was. And she like just, like, hey, like you're eating lunch by yourself. Like, do you want to eat with us? And I literally just sat there for a second and I was like she is the best person I've ever known in my entire life. Like, just truly, like you saying that, like, it's so true. It's just so
thank
true.
you, buddy.
I loved. Thank you
I would have you
so
ever come
much.
back. I had a
Please,
pleasure.
we are going to have to
we have
plan
a gift for you.
Okay. Oh my gosh, is this is this a law school diaries?
We got you a
merch?
piece of
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Now you can
Thank
wrap
you, thank
up.
you. Of course, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yay!
Concludes episode 3 of season 2, and we'll see you next time on the Law School Diaries.
Diaries.
Bye.